Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. So I thought I'd try a setting I haven't done before today, and I'm not sure what to call it. I've seen a few of these before, or variations of them, and I thought it was kind of cool. It takes a piece of sheet, and then it kind of pinches from four sides to create prongs. After you kind of dome it a little bit, I think. At least that's how I think it's done, but we're going to give it a shot and try. I picked out a little Zambian Emerald that is 5 by 7 millimeter cabochon, and it's very intensely colored, and I think it'll be pretty in this. So let's give this setting a try and see how it turns out. Before we get started on that, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I couldn't do this without them, and I do really appreciate their support and the great community that they've built over there. It's a really nice place with a lot of cool people, so thanks for that. The other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 24,900. We're almost at 25,000, which blows me away. Thank you for that. Thanks for the really nice comments. I'm truly touched when I hear comments from people saying that I've helped them in some way, so I really do appreciate knowing that. It makes it worth my while to do this kind of stuff. So thank you also for the contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, buying merch off of my merch store, and my ebooks, which are guides to my tutorials. So thanks for that. That really makes my channel sustainable, and I probably couldn't do this without that kind of support, so thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on this setting. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my merch store. There's a number of different models. I'm actually having a sale coming up, and it's going to be from November 21st through December 5th, and we're going to have 20% off of everything on the store, both on my merch store and the things that are available on my website. So if you want to make yourself a nice gift, that would be a good time to do it, between the 21st and the 5th of December. So get yourself some presents. But I like these sketchbooks a lot, and I sell quite a few of these. They're convenient to keep your drawings in of the projects that you're doing. You have this nice dot matrix in the background, which helps me to draw better pictures when I'm sketching out what I want to do. So I also then have a permanent record of what I've made, and I can go back and see how I did it in case I forget, which I do sometimes. This one has a useful gauge to inches to millimeters chart on the back. Some of the other ones have some different charts and metalsmithing information that's useful. So, all right, so this looks simple, but when I was doing some prototyping, it was less simple than I expected it to be. So let's see. I picked out a couple of stones that I was thinking about doing it with. I have this Zambian Emerald, and it's about 5 by 7. I also had this Ethiopian Opal, which has got a lot of red in it. It's kind of a pretty one, but I decided on the emerald this time. We'll use that other one for something else. So what this is going to be kind of a setting that's made out of a piece of sheet that is dimpled in 4 spots and rises up in a kind of a dome shape to create 4 little prongs. One here, one here, one here, and one here. And it ends up looking kind of scalloped in the corners, like that. So I'm not sure what to call it. There's probably a name for it that I just don't know, but it's going to curve up to a point here, curve up to a point here, curve up to a point here, curve up to a point here. And we'll have to carve a little seat for the stone in there and then bend the tops over to hold it in place. But I think I can pull this off. We'll give it a try. I'm going to use 22 gauge sheet for the bottom is sterling silver, and it's 0.66 millimeters if you don't use gauges. 16 gauge square for the band, and that's 1.3 millimeters, and I think that's pretty much all I'm going to need. And so I think to start with, I did some prototypes here. So I started off by just kind of taking a rectangle and bending them in to see how that would look, and that gave me some more ideas on the shape that things needed to be. This was more where I started to bend it in at the tops of rounded corners on a rectangle, and then I cut a notch into it in order to bend them inwards to get more of a dimple inwards, and we're starting to get closer to what I wanted to do. Then I did this one here, which is getting closer to the size that I needed. Still a little bit big. but I did the same thing. I just sized it down a little bit. And finally on this one isn't perfect, but it's the basic idea that I wanted to get. It's more in the size range. Like that. I used a little bit thinner sheet for this just because it was getting hard to manipulate this 18 gauge copper that I was using. And that's getting me pretty close. And the way that I achieved that was I did something that had a little bit more elongated ends here, like this, and like this, and then I kind of rounded out those there. So, and I've since I traced it, and I actually extended these for the silver one even a little bit further than they were, so that I have more to work with. So I think our first step is going to be cutting this out, and I'm also going to cut slots right here and there, and we'll see how it works. And then we'll start doing some shaping, and along the way we're going to solder these back together after they're shaped into kind of a shape that we want, which is more like this. So, and then we can do some fine tuning, but let's try that first. So we'll be going over to the sawing area and we'll get some sawing done. Okay, we'll see how my sawing skills are tonight. Okay, let's go back to that other area. One of the things I wanted to kind of point out to you that I forgot to a minute ago was that I kind of took those notches just barely in past where the stone size is going to be, or cut the slots on either side. So let's just go ahead and get this paper off here if I can. So now we need to do a little bit of dapping with the dapping block. Actually, let's make sure things are pretty symmetrical file-wise. Okay, let's just kind of dap it a little bit. So they're kind of cup-shaped. Where these splits are, I'm going to try and bend them inwards like this. See how it's kind of narrowed out like that? And see on the back, I want it to kind of like angle inwards like this. I think it might be best if I do 2 of these at a time. That way you'll have less movement. Like I don't have these 2 on the end lined up perfectly, but if I get these side ones lined up pretty well, solder those so they're a single piece again and not separated, they won't be able to move anymore, and then I can shape the rest of them. So let's do that. If you want to see my setup that I use, I've decided to start just putting a graphic in the thing instead of going over it each time to save a little time. And so that's what I do. And let's get some solder cut, and we'll see if we can get some in there. It's always kind of fun to experiment with different settings you've never really tried, I think. Sometimes it's frustrating because you don't quite get it just right. Sometimes it is. Sometimes things work out just great. So, and you learn something new. Actually, you learn something new either way. So because this is kind of a delicate, small thing, I'm going to pick it in there. If you haven't seen pick soldering before, there's a good video right there about it. It's one of those skills that I learned pretty early on that really made a big difference in how much I could do and the complexity of things that I could do. Gives you the ability to put solder right where you want it, kind of. I think I got that one closed very well. Okay, I got the 2 side ones soldered together. Let's make sure these other ones are lined up the way I want to be. Very good to kind of get a feel for kind of in the right size range. So I'm going to get those soldered and then we'll see what we have to do. Okay, one other thing I was going to do is I was going to take a small dapping punch and try and flare these out a little bit. See, and those I want to end up being the prongs. But they go inwards far enough to where I'm not sure if I can cut a seat in there or not. Sides definitely need to come in a little more. These end ones are going to need to be shorter. Okay. I'm going to let that pickle for a little while. Okay, I did some thinking while I was off camera, and I decided to go ahead and make an insert in order to create a platform. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder it in, and then I'm going to grind away the parts that are not next to the prong, so that I just have a little tiny 4 little platforms for that to sit on. But I need to make sure I have this positioned right so that it's straight. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to use pick soldering again to get there's a little bit of solder on the ring itself because I soldered it closed. So that may just go ahead and stick it down for us. At least in one spot. So I think probably if you measured a little bit more carefully than I had, you could have created the correct shape to get that seat without doing what I'm doing here. So I would say if you're trying this, play with it a little bit. And I'm also curious, people who've done things similar to this, what kind of strategies they used when they were doing it, because ultimately I like trying to learn about different strategies for things like this. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a ball burr and I'm going to grind away these inner parts here and just leave a little edge next to each prong. I think before we're done, I'm probably going to put a hole in the bottom too, just to allow more light to get to the stone. So let's go see if that fits in there now. Okay, so I can ground that away. I can see that this looks like we're in the right kind of size range. Then I will be able to use some filing and stuff to make it fit right in there just nicely. Oops. If I can get it to stay right side up. So I think we can let this pickle for a few minutes while I start putting the band together. Getting the band back together, man. I chose about a 7.5, I think is what I decided on. And so I cut a couple of pieces of 16 gauge wire to meet the needs for that. I'm going to do basically this sort of a band. So we'll solder both of these pieces of 16 gauge together in the middle here, but have the two ends separated like that. And then we'll adjust the distance of the V on the end to match what we want it to look like on here, and we'll attach those two. And then I think we can pickle it and focus on setting the stone after it's all polished. So let's get these nice and straight. Alright, so to figure out how far down we want to bend that, it doesn't have to be very far away, I don't think. So we'll just kind of, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, 7 millimeters, 8 millimeters maybe. That looks about right. So if we want it to be the same on the other side, all we have to do is flip these around. Line up the ends again. And just extend that mark on either side. That's where we'll bend them outwards. You have to be a little careful with square wire. And you could use round for this if you wanted to, I suppose. It has a tendency to try and twist a little when you bend it sharply, because it's trying to find an easier way to bend that way. And so you may need to take a moment and flatten it back out again before you solder these two together. As if you see right now, push there, the two ends pop up a little bit. This one's not as bad. Okay, so we want to get those touching along the entire length there. Find ourselves a flattish spot. I feel like there's probably a more elegant way to do what I'm trying to do here, and I just don't know how to do it. So if anybody does, let me know. Looks like a good solder joint. Gotta clean it up a little bit. Well, let's make this into more of a ring shape, shall we? I think that'll look nice. So let me get these aligned pretty nicely. It's looking pretty good. The question is, can we get it soldered on there straight? Guess we'll find out. I think we can, probably. Okay, so ideally it would be nice to have some solder there or there already. And so let's pick a little on there so it's right in the right spot. And then when we heat this again, we should be able to get that to flow again. And then we'll have to add any more in there. Wouldn't that be grand? One disadvantage of using a third hand is that it sucks up a lot of the heat that you're using. And so it takes longer to get your piece up to temperature because it's drawing heat away. So it probably looks on the camera like it's leaned that way, and that's because the whole thing is leaned that way. But I think that actually will solder on pretty straight. So we're going to give it a go and hope for the best. Oh, that's pretty good. Let's see what happens. I know I got the side towards me, but I couldn't really see the back side. Yeah, it looks like it's on there. Okay, let's cool it off and take a peek at it. It's on there. That looks pretty straight from that side. As long as I photograph it from this side. No, that's alright on this side too. Okay, I think I'm going to let that clean up for a while. We'll come back and see what we can do with it. I do a lot of kind of manipulating to get this to sit in here right. So I would say I may have to go back in and reset this after I do some modifications. However, for the sake of pictures, I'm going to kind of try and wrap it up here. And I think it's going to be a super pretty ring, actually, once I get it all cleaned up on the top of the bezel. So, and once I get this stone sitting in there where I feel it's secure. So I may need to do a little bit more dremeling on the inside. But I am curious, if you've done something like this before, what your process is. So if you have, tell me in the comments. I'm curious. Or tell me, you know, what there's probably something obvious that I missed that would have made this much easier. So if you know what that is, I'd be curious to know. So, all right, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well that was a scallopy pinch setting. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. I'd love it if you'd also hit, hype it if you get the opportunity to do that. That's a new feature on YouTube. But make sure to hit my main channel page on YouTube as well. I have 550 plus videos now, so there's a lot of content over there. And there's almost certainly something valuable or useful to you over there. There's lots of project ideas and some skills. So whether you're a beginner or someone who's more advanced, there's probably something over there you can use. So watch a few videos, subscribe to my channel. I'd love it if you did that. There's no cost to that. And don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's information about this video, but there's also some important links, like a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I told you about at the beginning, or some other merch. There's some new stuff up there, including some new magnets, a couple of mugs that have some cool pictures of our cats with some sayings on them. And I think they're fun and attractive and pretty good merch, actually. So check those out. Get yourself a few presents. And there's also a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. That's a great place with a bunch of knowledgeable people who are willing to share what they know about jewelry making. And I pick their brains all the time, and I hope you will too if you sign up for that. But there's multiple levels of membership. Tier 1 is just getting the videos without any YouTube advertisements, and that's kind of nice. The tiers above that include some other things like Patreon exclusive videos or live streams and some other stuff. So check those out. I'd love to have you as part of that community as well. And finally, there's a link to my ebooks, which are guides to my tutorials, and there's one for 2024 and one for 2023. Each one has about 170 some pages. Each page has a link to the video tutorial that it's talking about. It includes a picture of the sketch that I drew, a picture of the final outcome of the project, a list of materials that it took to make that project, and a difficulty rating, and some notes I made about the project, including things like, did I learn something useful from it? Would I do it differently if I was to do it again? Did I think it was a good outcome or a bad outcome, and why? Not everything turns out the way you want to, so sometimes you learn something that way as well. So it's a really great way to have a whole bunch of projects at your fingertips, and a nice way to support my channel. So thanks for that in advance. There's even a package deal if you get both 2023s and 2024s. You save $5, I think. So check it out. Thanks for watching today. Come back again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.